Michael Carter, a quiet American businessman, visits Grace Hope Orphanage to make a donation, carrying no expectations, only a desire to give back and leave quietly. He parks his modest black sedan a few blocks away, choosing to walk the remaining distance as if slowing his steps might prepare his heart for the unfamiliar emotions he always feels around places like this. The orphanage building is old but well kept, with pale brick walls softened by climbing ivy and windows that reflect the afternoon sky. Children's laughter floats faintly through the open courtyard, a sound that makes Michael pause for just a moment before he reaches the door. He exhales slowly, steadying himself, reminding his heart that this is just another charitable visit, nothing more. For years, philanthropy has been Michael's way of staying connected to humanity without getting too close. He donates quietly, avoids cameras, refuses plaques with his name engraved in gold. To the outside world, he is a successful businessman who built his fortune through discipline and intelligence. To himself, he is simply a man trying to balance the weight of the past with the responsibility of the present. Grace Hope Orphanage is one of several institutions he supports annually, yet he has never visited in person before. This time, something compelled him to come himself, though even he could not fully explain why. As he steps inside, the scent of clean floors mixed with faint traces of home-cooked food greets him. The hallway walls are lined with children's drawings, crayon suns, uneven houses, smiling stick figures holding hands. Michael's eyes linger on one drawing of a man and a little girl standing beneath a tree. The simplicity of it tightens something in his chest, but he quickly looks away, reminding himself not to overthink. He has learned how dangerous nostalgia can be when left unchecked. The director of the orphanage, a kind-faced woman named Mrs. Thompson, welcomes him warmly. Her voice is gentle, practiced, shaped by years of comforting children and speaking with donors. She thanks him sincerely, not just for the check he hands over, but for showing up in person. Michael nods politely, insisting that the credit belongs to the staff who dedicate their lives to the children here. He asks no questions about recognition or impact reports. Instead, he listens as Mrs. Thompson speaks about daily routines, school schedules, and the small victories that keep them going. Children learning to read, overcoming fear, trusting adults again. They walk slowly through the corridors. Michael keeps his hands folded, posture relaxed but reserved. Children peek out from doorways, some curious, some shy. A few smile and wave, and Michael returns the gesture with a soft nod, careful not to intrude. He tells himself he is only here to deliver the donation and leave. But his footsteps slow with every passing room. There is something about the air here, fragile yet resilient, that refuses to let him remain detached. In the common room, several children are gathered around a table, working on homework while a volunteer supervises. Michael stands at a respectful distance, observing quietly. He notices the way some children lean toward one another, forming bonds that replace what they have lost. Others sit alone, guarded, eyes alert. He understands that look. It is the look of someone who has learned too early that the world can take without warning. Michael's gaze drifts toward the far corner of the room, where a young girl sits by herself, sketching intently in a worn notebook. She appears calm, focused, almost detached from the noise around her. There is something about her stillness that draws his attention. She doesn't look up when others laugh or move around. Her posture is composed, mature beyond her years. Michael feels an unfamiliar pull, subtle but persistent, urging him to look closer. He doesn't approach her. Instead, he continues listening to Mrs. Thompson as she explains upcoming needs: new books, winter clothing, repairs to the heating system. Michael nods, mentally noting that he will cover those expenses as well. Yet his attention keeps drifting back to the girl in the corner. He tells himself it is nothing, just concern, just empathy. Still, his heart beats a little faster, and he doesn't know why. They move outside into the courtyard, where children are playing under the supervision of caregivers. The sunlight is soft, casting gentle shadows across the ground. Michael feels the warmth on his face and remembers other afternoons, long ago memories he usually keeps locked away. He watches the children run, trip, laugh, and get back up again. Resilience in its purest form. Mrs. Thompson thanks him again, sensing that he may be ready to leave. Michael hands her his card and tells her to contact him if there is ever an urgent need. He means it, as he always does. He believes kindness should be responsive, not performative. As they walk back toward the entrance, Michael feels that familiar urge to escape before emotions take root. But just as he reaches the door, a small sound stops him, a soft cough, followed by the scratch of pencil on paper. He glances back almost involuntarily. The girl from the corner has moved closer, sitting on a bench near the window, still drawing. Sunlight illuminates her face now, revealing thoughtful eyes and a seriousness that feels oddly familiar. Michael hesitates. This was not part of the plan. He came to donate, to remain distant, to leave quietly. Yet his feet do not move. Something holds him there, a quiet insistence he has ignored for years. He tells himself it would be rude not to at least say hello. He takes a few slow steps toward her, careful not to startle her. "That's a nice drawing," he says gently, keeping his voice low. The girl looks up, surprised but not afraid. Her eyes meet his, and for a brief moment, the world seems to narrow, as if everything else has faded into the background. "Thank you," she replies softly, closing the notebook just enough to guard it, but not hide it completely. Her voice is calm, steady, carrying a hint of politeness shaped by necessity. Michael smiles, though it feels fragile. "Do you like to draw?" he asks. She nods. "It helps me think." He understands that more than he expects to. Drawing, numbers, work, everyone has their way of surviving their thoughts. He nods back, respecting her space. "That's a good skill," he says, holding on to things that help. She studies him for a moment, curiosity flickering in her eyes. "Are you leaving?" she asks. The question catches him off guard. He had intended to say yes without hesitation. Instead, he pauses. "I was planning to," he admits. "But I still have a little time." She nods again, satisfied without answer, and opens her notebook slightly, revealing a careful sketch of a tree with deep roots and wide branches. Michael feels his throat tighten, though he cannot explain why. He swallows, steadying himself. For the first time since walking into Grace Hope Orphanage, Michael Carter forgets about schedules, meetings, and quiet exits. He sits down on the bench across from the girl, unaware that this simple moment meant to be brief and insignificant has already begun to change the course of his life. Inside the orphanage, he notices a 12-year-old girl named Lily Carter, whose calm eyes and gentle manner create an unexplained emotional pull in his heart. She is sitting slightly apart from the other children, not out of loneliness but choice, as if she has learned to be comfortable in her own quiet space. While the room hums with soft chatter, scraping chairs, and the occasional laugh, Lily remains composed, her movements slow and deliberate. She holds a pencil lightly, sketching on a piece of paper with careful focus, as though each line carries meaning beyond the page. Michael feels something shift inside him the moment their paths cross, a sensation he hasn't felt in years, an ache mixed with familiarity. He tries to understand why this child stands out. There are many children here, each with their own story, each deserving of care and compassion. Yet Lily's presence feels different. Her eyes lift briefly, meeting his, and in that instant, Michael feels as though he is looking into a reflection of something deeply personal. Her gaze is steady, not shy, not challenging. just observant. It carries a quiet wisdom that feels far too heavy for someone so young. Michael looks away first, unsettled by how exposed he suddenly feels. As he continues walking, he tells himself it's nothing. The mind plays tricks, especially in places filled with emotion. Still, his awareness of Lily lingers, like a soft echo he cannot silence. He listens to the director speaking, nods at the right moments, but his thoughts keep circling back. He wonders what her story is, what experiences shaped that calm exterior. Children like Lily often learn early that showing too much emotion can invite disappointment. Michael knows that lesson well. From the corner of his eye, he watches her interact with another child who approaches her desk. Lily smiles faintly, offers a pencil without being asked, then returns to her drawing. The interaction is brief but kind, revealing a generosity that feels instinctive rather than taught. Michael's chest tightens again. He recognizes that kind of quiet kindness, the kind that doesn't seek attention, the kind that exists simply because it feels right. He remembers another time long ago when he noticed similar traits in someone else. The memory surfaces uninvited, bringing with it a wave of warmth and pain. He pushes it down, unwilling to open doors he has spent years keeping closed. Yet the orphanage seems determined to test his defenses. Every step deeper into the building feels like a step backward into his own past. Lily shifts in her seat, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture is small, almost insignificant, but it strikes Michael with surprising force. It's the way she does it, absent-minded, thoughtful, that feels achingly familiar. His heart begins to beat faster, and he takes a slow breath, grounding himself. He reminds himself that resemblance is coincidence, nothing more. Millions of people share similar gestures, similar expressions. Still, his eyes return to her again and again, drawn by an invisible thread. He notices details now: the careful way she keeps her things organized, the slight furrow of concentration between her brows, the way she seems aware of everything around her without being overwhelmed by it. Lily is not withdrawn. She is observant, not distant. She is guarded. Michael understands that kind of balance. It is the armor one builds after learning that the world can change without warning. He wonders what Lily thinks of him. To her, he is likely just another visitor, another adult who will come and go. The thought unsettles him. He hates the idea of being just another passing face in a child's life, especially hers. The weight of responsibility presses against his chest, though he doesn't yet understand why he feels responsible at all. Michael pauses near a bookshelf, pretending to examine the titles while giving himself an excuse to stay within sight of her. Children's books line the shelves, stories of adventure, family, belonging. He picks one up, flips through the pages, but the words blur. His attention keeps drifting back to Lily. She has stopped drawing now, resting her chin on her hand, staring out the window as if lost in thought. Sunlight brushes her face, highlighting the softness of her features and the seriousness of her expression. He wonders what she dreams about. Does she imagine a future beyond these walls? Does she allow herself to hope, or has hope been tempered by disappointment? Michael knows how dangerous hope can feel when it has been taken away before. He spent years avoiding it, believing that low expectations were safer. Yet here he is, standing in an orphanage, feeling hope stir where he least expects it. The director continues talking, but Michael gently excuses himself, saying he'd like a moment to look around on his own. She agrees, understanding the need for donors to connect personally with the space. As soon as she steps away, the room feels quieter, more intimate. Michael takes a few steps closer to Lily, careful not to invade her space. He stops a short distance away, unsure of what to say, unsure if he should say anything at all. Lily senses him before he speaks. She looks up, her eyes meeting his again. There is curiosity there now, mixed with caution. She doesn't smile, but she doesn't turn away either. Michael feels his throat tighten. Words seem inadequate, too heavy for such a simple moment. He finally manages a soft greeting. "Hi," she replies, her voice gentle, measured. For a brief second, neither of them speaks. The silence is not awkward. It feels meaningful, as though both are listening to something unspoken between them. Michael notices the way she sits straight-backed, attentive, as if she has learned to present herself carefully to adults. It breaks his heart in ways he cannot fully articulate. He asks her name, already feeling strangely nervous. "I'm Lily," she says. "Lily Carter." The name lands like a quiet thunderclap in his chest, though his expression doesn't change. He tells himself it's just a coincidence. Carter is not uncommon. Still, his pulse quickens, and he has to focus on breathing evenly. He repeats her name softly, as if testing how it feels on his tongue. It feels right. Too right. Too right. Lily tilts her head slightly, studying him with the same thoughtful intensity he noticed earlier. "Are you here to help?" she asks. "Yes," he answers honestly. "I wanted to help." She nods, as if that confirms something for her. "That's good," she says. People who help usually mean it at first. The innocence of the statement carries a quiet sadness beneath it. Michael feels a sting behind his eyes. He wants to promise her that some people keep meaning it, that help doesn't always disappear. But he knows promises can be dangerous, especially when spoken too easily. Instead, he smiles gently. "I think some people mean it for a long time," he says, "even if they don't always know how to show it." Lily considers this, then gives a small nod. She seems satisfied, returning to her drawing. Michael remains standing there, unsure if he should leave or stay. Something inside him urges him not to walk away yet, not to let this moment slip through his fingers like so many others in his life. As he watches her draw again, the unexplained pull in his heart grows stronger, no longer something he can ignore. It feels like recognition without memory, connection without explanation. He doesn't know what it means, only that it matters. For the first time in years, Michael Carter feels the quiet certainty that his visit to Grace Hope Orphanage was never meant to be just a donation. It was the beginning of something far deeper, something his heart recognized long before his mind was ready to understand it. During a brief conversation, Lily mentions her late mother's name, Sarah Carter, a name that instantly freezes Michael, reopening wounds he believed were buried forever. The words leave her mouth gently, without hesitation, as if she is speaking of something precious but settled, something that no longer surprises her with pain the way it once did. For Michael, however, the effect is immediate and devastating. His body reacts before his mind can catch up. His shoulders stiffen, his breath falters, and a cold stillness spreads through him, as though time itself has paused to watch his reaction. Sarah Carter. The name echoes in his head, louder than any sound in the room. It is not just a name. It is a lifetime compressed into 2 words. Love, regret, hope, loss, all of it rushes back at once, uninvited and overwhelming. Michael feels as though the ground beneath him has shifted, as if the careful structure he built to keep the past contained has suddenly cracked open. Lily doesn't notice at first. She continues speaking, her voice calm, almost thoughtful, explaining something small about her mother, how Sarah used to hum while cooking, how she believed every bad day could be softened with kindness. Lily speaks with a maturity that suggests she has repeated these memories many times, not to dwell in sadness, but to keep her mother alive in quiet ways. Michael watches her lips move, but the room has gone distant, like he is hearing her through water. His mind drags him backward in time without mercy. He sees Sarah as she was years ago, standing in a small kitchen filled with morning light, laughing at something he said while brushing flour from her hands. He hears her voice teasing him for working too much, for thinking too hard about everything. He remembers how she used to place her hand over his heart when he grew anxious, telling him to slow down, to breathe. Those memories were supposed to stay locked away. He worked hard to bury them, to survive without them. Hearing her name spoken by a child has shattered that fragile peace. Michael blinks, forcing himself back into the present. Lily has stopped talking now. She is watching him closely, her eyes filled with quiet concern. She senses the shift in him, the sudden heaviness that wasn't there moments ago. "Are you okay?" she asks softly. Her question nearly undoes him. He nods too quickly, afraid that if he doesn't respond immediately, his control will slip. "Yes," he says, though the word feels thin and fragile. "I just didn't expect that." Lily tilts her head slightly, studying him. Children who grow up without certainty learn to read people carefully. "Did you know my mum?" she asks, not accusing, just curious. Michael's heart pounds painfully in his chest. He cannot tell her the truth, not yet. He doesn't even fully understand it himself. "I knew someone with that name," he answers carefully. "A long time ago." Lily accepts this with a slow nod. "My mum said names have a way of finding the right ears," she says. She said if someone reacts to a name, it usually means they cared. The innocence of her words cuts deeper than anything else. Michael looks away, pressing his lips together. He feels exposed, stripped of the emotional armor he has relied on for years. He wonders how a child who has lost so much can speak with such gentle wisdom, while he, a grown man with resources and control, feels so unsteady. Lily resumes speaking, unaware of the storm still raging inside him. She talks about the night her mother became ill. How Sarah tried to stay strong, how she smiled even when she was tired. Michael listens now, every word carving itself into his chest. Each detail Lily shares aligns too closely with the woman he loved. The kindness, the resilience, the quiet strength masked by warmth. He tells himself again that coincidence is possible, that this is just a cruel overlap of names and memories. But the more Lily speaks, the harder it becomes to maintain that lie. "My mom used to say my dad was kind," Lily says suddenly, her voice softer now. "She said he wasn't perfect, but he tried to do the right thing. She said he loved deeply, even when he was afraid." Michael feels as though the air has been knocked from his lungs. His vision blurs, and he has to look down at his hands to steady himself. Those words could have been pulled straight from Sarah's mouth. He remembers her defending him during difficult times, insisting that his distance was not coldness but fear, that his silence was not absence but struggle. "Do you miss her?" he asks quietly, surprising himself with the question. Lily nods. "Every day," she answers simply. "But she told me not to let missing her make me bitter. She said love shouldn't hurt forever." Michael swallows hard. He realizes, with painful clarity, that he has done the opposite. He let love harden into something he could manage: work, success, isolation. He told himself it was strength. Sitting here now, across from Lily, he understands how wrong he was. The orphanage feels smaller suddenly, more intimate. The walls seem to close in, as if urging him to face what he has avoided for years. He thinks about the night Sarah left, the argument fueled by fear and exhaustion, the promises to fix things later. Later never came. Life moved forward without waiting for him to catch up. "Did your mum ever talk about your dad much?" Michael asks, choosing his words carefully. Lily shrugs gently. "Not a lot. She didn't want me to feel sad about someone I didn't know. But when she did talk about him, she smiled. That smile, Michael remembers it vividly. Sarah's smile when she spoke about hope, about family, about the future they once planned together. His chest aches with the weight of regret. He wonders how many chances he missed, how many moments he assumed he would get back. Silence settles between them again, thick but not uncomfortable. Lily watches him with an expression that feels older than her years, as if she senses that this conversation means more than either of them has said aloud. Michael feels the urge to reach out, to hold her hand, but he stops himself. He doesn't trust his emotions right now. He takes a slow breath. "Your mom sounds like she was an incredible person," he says honestly. "She was," Lily replies. "She said everyone carries a story they're afraid to tell. She said the bravest thing is letting someone hear it." Michael closes his eyes briefly. The words feel directed at him, though Lily doesn't know it. He opens them again, looking at her face, at the familiar curve of her smile, the familiar seriousness in her eyes. The resemblance he tried to dismiss earlier now feels undeniable. His heart whispers the truth again, louder this time, and it terrifies him. If Lily is who his heart suspects she is, then everything changes. His life, carefully constructed to avoid pain, will no longer be enough. He will have to face his past, his mistakes, and the consequences of his absence. The thought frightens him, but beneath the fear, something else stirs hope. Lily shifts closer on the bench, her presence grounding him. "It's okay to be sad," she says quietly. "My mum said sadness just means something mattered." Michael nods, his eyes burning. "She was right," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. For the first time in years, he allows himself to feel the full weight of Sarah's loss, not as something to suppress, but as something to honor. Hearing her name from Lily's lips has reopened wounds he thought were buried, but it has also reminded him of something he forgot. Love does not disappear just because time passes. As Lily looks at him with gentle curiosity, Michael realizes that this moment is a turning point. He cannot go back to being the man who walks away quietly. The past has found him, not to punish him, but to ask something of him. And though fear still grips his heart, he knows one thing with certainty: whatever comes next, he will not turn away again. Old records, a faded photograph, and a small broken locket confirm the impossible truth. Lily is the daughter Michael lost years ago after a tragic separation. The realization does not arrive all at once. It comes in fragments, like pieces of glass slowly cutting through denial, each detail sharp enough to draw blood from memories Michael thought had long since gone numb. It begins quietly, almost harmlessly, when Mrs. Thompson returns with a thin folder tucked under her arm. She explains that Lily's records are incomplete, as many are, but that some documents from years ago were recently reorganized during an archive cleanup. Michael hadn't asked to see them. In fact, part of him hoped no one would bring paperwork into this fragile moment. Yet when the folder is placed gently on the table between them, his chest tightens with a sense of inevitability. Lily watches curiously as Mrs. Thompson opens the folder, unaware of the storm about to break. Michael tells himself again that this is coincidence layered on coincidence. He clings to logic like a lifeline, but his hands tremble slightly as his eyes scan the yellowed pages, filled with typed notes and handwritten margins. Dates jump out first, years, places, too familiar. His breath catches when he sees Sarah's name written clearly in black ink. Not just Sarah Carter, but details only he and she once knew. An old address, a temporary clinic, notes about relocation after a personal emergency. Michael's pulse pounds in his ears. He remembers that address. He remembers that clinic. He remembers the chaos of that year. The choices made in fear, the moments lost to pride and misunderstanding. Mrs. Thompson explains gently how Lily arrived at the orphanage years ago, how her mother had passed after a long illness, how there had been no immediate family listed who could take the child in. Michael hears the words, but they struggle to settle into meaning. His eyes are fixed on the file, on the undeniable trail of ink and paper. that leads straight back to his own past. Then there is the photograph. It slips from the folder as Mrs. Thompson turns a page, drifting down onto the table like a leaf falling from a tree. Michael's breath leaves him in a silent rush. The room tilts slightly, and he grips the edge of the chair to steady himself. The photo is faded, the edges worn soft by time and handling. It shows Sarah standing in a small park, sunlight filtering through trees behind her. She is smiling, tired but radiant, holding a baby wrapped in a pale blanket. Michael knows that smile. He knows the curve of her lips, the light in her eyes that always appeared when she spoke about hope. His vision blurs as he takes in the tiny face in her arms. The baby has his eyes. Michael's hands shake as he reaches for the photograph. His fingers hover above it for a moment, as if touching it might make the image disappear. But it doesn't. It stays, solid and merciless in its truth. The baby's expression, the shape of her face, the familiar softness, it all strikes him with devastating clarity. Lily leans closer, peering at the picture. "That's my mom," she says quietly, a small smile touching her lips. She said this was taken on a good day. Michael cannot speak. His throat feels sealed shut. A good day. He remembers that day now, though he hadn't known it then. He remembers Sarah telling him she felt hopeful, that things might finally settle. He remembers missing her call later that evening, because he was in a meeting he thought couldn't wait. The meeting did wait. Everything else didn't. Mrs. Month, Thompson hesitates, sensing the gravity of the moment. "There was also this," she says softly, reaching into the folder once more. She places a small object on the table, a broken locket, its chain snapped, the metal dulled with age. Michael stares at it, his heart hammering painfully. He knows that locket. His fingers close around it automatically, memory guiding his movement before thought can intervene. The metal is cool against his skin. He flips it open with a familiarity that makes Lily's eyes widen. Inside, though one side is cracked, there remains a tiny inscription, barely visible now. Forever, no matter what. His breath breaks into a quiet, uneven sound. He gave that locket to Sarah years ago, on a night filled with promises and fear in equal measure. He remembers fastening it around her neck, telling her it was meant to remind her that no matter how difficult things became, they were not alone. He had believed that then. Lily watches him closely now, confusion flickering across her face. "My mom kept that," she says. "She said it was important. She said it belonged to someone who loved us." The word "us" lands like a final blow. Michael's vision swims. The room feels too small, too bright. Every breath hurts. There is no room left for denial. The records, the photograph, the locket, they align too perfectly, forming a truth that cannot be undone. Lily is not just a child he feels drawn to. She is not just a coincidence wrapped in familiarity. She is his daughter. The weight of that realization crashes over him, bringing with it a flood of emotions so intense he fears he might collapse beneath them. Love, regret, guilt, relief, terror. Guilt, relief, Dirrit. Guilt. They tangle together, leaving him dizzy and undone. Years of loss and unanswered questions suddenly have shape and meaning. The emptiness he carried, the ache he never learned to name it all, leads here to this child sitting inches away from him. Lily senses the shift. Her voice is small when she speaks again. "Why are you holding it like that?" she asks. Michael opens his mouth, then closes it again. How does one explain a lifetime of absence in a single moment? How does one tell a child that he was there all along, just too broken and afraid to find her? Mrs. Thompson quietly excuses herself, understanding instinctively that this is a moment that belongs only to them. The door closes softly. leaving Michael and Lily alone with the truth. Michael finally looks at her. Really looks at her, with eyes no longer shielded by doubt. He sees Sarah in her smile, in the gentle way she holds herself. He sees himself in her eyes, in the seriousness that hides a deep capacity for love. Tears spill freely now, unstoppable and unashamed. "I didn't know," he says at last, his voice shaking. "I swear to you, Lily, I didn't know." She watches him silently, absorbing his words, his tears, his fear. Children understand honesty in ways adults often forget. "About what?" she asks softly. Michael takes a slow, unsteady breath. This is the moment his life pivots, the moment everything changes. "About you," he says, "about being your father." The words hang in the air, fragile and terrifying. Lily's eyes widen, her breath catching. She doesn't speak right away. She looks down at the photograph, then at the locket in his hand, then back at his face. Something shifts in her expression, not disbelief, but recognition, as if a puzzle piece has finally slid into place. "My mom said my dad would come back if it was meant to be," she whispers. "She said love doesn't get lost. It just gets delayed." Michael breaks then, fully and completely. He moves closer, stopping just short of touching her, giving her space even as every instinct urges him to hold her tight. "I'm here now," he says, his voice thick with emotion. "And I'm not leaving again. Not if you'll let me stay." Lily studies him for a long moment, searching his face for truth. She has learned not to trust easily, but she also carries her mother's hope, fragile yet stubborn. Slowly, she reaches out and places her small hand over his. The contact sends a shock through him, grounding and electrifying all at once. Years of separation collapse into that single touch. In that moment, the impossible truth becomes real not just in records and relics, but in flesh and blood, in connection and choice. Michael Carter came to the orphanage believing he would give something and walk away. Instead, he found what he lost, what he mourned, and what he never stopped loving. The past did not return to punish him. It returned to offer him a second chance. Overwhelmed, Michael kneels, embraces Lily, and finally reveals the truth of who he is, as both of them realize they were never truly lost to each other. The moment arrives not with sudden movement, but with a quiet surrender. Michael's knees touch the floor almost without his awareness, as if his body understands what his mind is still struggling to process. The polished surface feels cool beneath him, grounding him in the present, reminding him that this is real, that he is here, that Lily is real. He looks up at her from where he kneels, his eyes level with hers now, no longer towering as an adult visitor, but meeting her as something far more vulnerable. His hands tremble, hovering uncertainly in the air between them. He has faced boardrooms full of powerful people without fear, navigated crises that made headlines, made decisions that affected thousands of lives. None of that compares to the terror and tenderness of this moment. "Lily," he says softly, her name catching in his throat. She watches him closely, her body still, her expression unreadable. She has learned to brace herself for disappointment, to keep her heart protected even when hope whispers too loudly. Yet there is something in Michael's eyes now that holds her attention completely. It isn't pity or confusion, it's recognition. It's grief and love woven together in a way she doesn't yet understand, but somehow feels. "I need to tell you something," Michael continues, his voice unsteady but honest. "And I need you to know that whatever you feel is okay. You don't have to say anything right away." Lily nods slowly, her fingers curling into the fabric of her sleeve. She doesn't speak, but she doesn't step back either. Michael takes a deep breath, the kind that feels like it reaches all the way to his soul. "Your mother," he says, pausing as emotion tightens his chest. "Sarah, she was the love of my life. Lily's eyes widen slightly, not in shock, but in a dawning awareness. She has heard her mother speak of love before, of a man who mattered deeply, even if he was absent. She listens carefully now, her heart beating faster. I knew her years ago, Michael continues. We were young and scared and thought we had more time than we did. When things fell apart, I believed I had lost everything. I didn't know about you. The words land gently, but their meaning ripples outward. Lily feels something shift inside her, like a door creaking open. She thinks of the stories her mother told her, of the kindness she always described, of the sadness she carried quietly. She thinks of the locket, the photograph, the name that never sounded like a stranger. Michael's voice breaks. Lily, I'm your father. The silence that follows is vast and fragile. It stretches between them, filled with years of absence and longing, with unanswered questions and buried hopes. Lily stares at him, her mind racing, her heart pounding so loudly she's sure he can hear it. She doesn't cry. Not yet. Instead, she searches his face, studying every line, every emotion flickering across his features. She sees fear there, and regret, and something else. Something unmistakable. Love. Not the easy kind, but the kind that has survived loss and guilt and time. My dad, she repeats softly, as if testing the words. Michael nods, tears spilling freely now. Yes, I should have been there. I should have looked harder, fought harder. I can't change that. But I'm here now, and I will be here for as long as you'll let me. Lily's breath catches. She feels a warmth spread through her chest, followed quickly by confusion and pain. Years of imagining, of wondering who he was, why he never came. Anger flickers briefly, sharp and unexpected. But beneath it is something stronger, a deep, aching sense of recognition. My mum said you were kind, Lily whispers. She said you loved deeply. Michael closes his eyes, overcome. She was right, and she was braver than I ever was. Without fully realizing she is doing it, Lily takes a small step forward, then another. The distance between them shrinks until she is standing directly in front of him. Michael lifts his hands again, this time not stopping himself. He rests them lightly on her arms, careful, asking permission without words. Lily doesn't pull away. Instead, she leans into him, her forehead resting against his shoulder. The contact is tentative at first, uncertain, like testing fragile ground. Michael freezes for half a second, afraid to breathe, afraid to break the moment. Then instinct takes over. He wraps his arms around her gently, pulling her closer, holding her as though she might vanish if he loosens his grip. The embrace is not dramatic or rushed. It is slow, grounding, real. Lily feels his arms around her, solid and warm, and something inside her finally gives way. She clutches the front of his jacket, her fingers tightening as years of quiet loneliness rush to the surface. Michael buries his face in her hair, inhaling softly. The scent is familiar in a way he can't explain, a blend of childhood and memory. His shoulders shake as he cries silently, the weight of years pressing down on him even as it lifts. This is what he lost. This is what he found. I thought I was alone, Lily says into his chest, her voice muffled but steady. Even when people were around, Michael tightens his embrace just a little. I was alone too, he admits. I just didn't know what I was missing. They remain like that for a long moment, the world outside the orphanage walls continuing on unaware. In this small space, time seems to soften, bending around them, allowing something broken to mend slowly. Lily pulls back slightly, enough to look at his face. She reaches up hesitantly and touches his cheek, brushing away a tear with her thumb. The gesture is small, instinctive, and it undoes him completely. You're really here, she says almost to herself. Yes, Michael answers without hesitation. I'm really here. She studies him again, this time with less caution and more curiosity. Did you ever think about me? She asks. Every day, he replies, the truth pouring out easily now. Even when I didn't know it was you. I felt like something was missing. I just couldn't name it. Lily nods slowly, absorbing his words. She thinks of the nights she lay awake wondering about him, imagining a face she could never picture clearly. Looking at him now, she feels a strange sense of familiarity, as if her heart recognizes him before her mind fully catches up. My mum would have liked this, she says quietly. She believed in second chances. Michael smiles through his tears. So do I. He remains kneeling, not wanting to tower over her, wanting to stay grounded in this shared space. Lily sits down on the floor with him, cross-legged, their shoulders touching. It feels natural, unforced. They talk softly then, about small things, at first her favorite subjects at school, the drawings she loves to make, the stories her mother used to tell. Michael listens intently, memorizing every detail, every inflection of her voice. As she speaks, he sees more of Sarah in her, not just in appearance, but in spirit, the compassion, the quiet strength, the ability to find light even after loss. It fills him with both sorrow and gratitude. I was scared you wouldn't want me, Lily admits after a while, her voice barely above a whisper. Michael turns fully toward her. I have wanted you my entire life, he says, even when I didn't know how to find you. She believes him, not because the words are perfect, but because his presence is real. Because he stayed, because he knelt instead of standing above her, because he listened. Outside the room, the orphanage continues its routines. Footsteps pass by. A door opens and closes. But inside, something fundamental has shifted. A story once marked by loss has found a new chapter. Lily rests her head against Michael's shoulder again, this time without hesitation. He wraps an arm around her, holding her close. The fear that once defined both of them begins to loosen its grip, replaced by something fragile but powerful. They were never truly lost to each other. They were separated by silence, by misunderstanding, by time, but not by love. And now, in this quiet embrace, they both understand that finding each other was never about chance. It was about coming home. Their silent embrace marks the end of the story. It is not an ending filled with applause or dramatic words, but one shaped by stillness, by breath, by the simple truth of two hearts finally resting after years of wandering. In that quiet hold, the world seems to soften around them, as if it too understands the significance of what has been found. Michael remains on his knees, Lily tucked gently against him, her head resting where his heart beats strongest. He is acutely aware of every sensation, the warmth of her small frame, the faint rise and fall of her breathing, the way her fingers clutch the fabric of his jacket, as if anchoring herself to something real at last. He does not move, afraid that even the smallest shift might break the fragile perfection of the moment. For the first time in his life, he feels no urge to rush, no need to plan the next step. This moment asks for nothing but presence. Lily closes her eyes, something she rarely does around adults. It is not sleep she seeks, but safety. In his arms, the noise in her mind quiets. The questions that have followed her for years. Why didn't he come? Was I not enough? Did he forget me? Begin to loosen their hold. She does not need answers right now. The answer is here, wrapped around her, steady and real. Michael's hand rests lightly on her back, not gripping, not guiding, just there. He feels the steady rhythm of her breathing and matches his own to it unconsciously, as though their bodies are remembering a connection older than memory. Tears still slip from his eyes from time to time, but they no longer carry the sharp sting of regret alone. They are softened now by relief, by gratitude, by the quiet miracle of reunion. Around them, the room remains unchanged. The table with scattered papers, the chair slightly pushed back, the light filtering through the window, shifting slowly as the sun continues its path. Nothing outward marks this moment as extraordinary, and yet everything has changed. The universe does not announce its most important turning points with noise. Sometimes, it simply allows two people to find each other and stay. Lily shifts slightly, adjusting her position, and Michael instinctively tightens his embrace just enough to let her know he is there. She sighs softly, a sound so small yet so full that it feels like a release of something she has been holding in her chest for years. Her body relaxes against his, no longer rigid, no longer braced for disappointment. He thinks of Sarah then not with the sharp pain that once accompanied her memory, but with a gentler ache, one that carries love instead of loss. He imagines her watching this moment, her familiar smile filled with quiet satisfaction. She always believed in endings that weren't really endings, in love that found its way back, no matter how long it took. For the first time, Michael believes it too. He does not whisper promises. He does not speak vows of forever. Words feel unnecessary, even intrusive. This embrace is not about assurances. It is about truth, about showing up, about staying. Lily does not ask him to promise anything either. She senses, in the way children sometimes do, that this moment is complete just as it is. Minutes pass, or maybe only seconds. Time behaves differently here, stretching and folding in ways that make it impossible to measure. Michael becomes aware of his heartbeat again, steady now, no longer frantic. He presses his cheek lightly against Lily's hair, breathing her in, grounding himself in the reality of her existence. She tilts her head slightly, resting it more comfortably against his chest. Her fingers loosen their grip on his jacket, but do not let go. It is a subtle shift from holding on out of fear to holding on out of choice. Michael notices it instantly. His throat tightens, and he closes his eyes, letting the meaning of that small change sink deep into him. In this silence, memories drift through his mind, not as wounds, but as chapters finally finding their place in a larger story. The years of work that filled his days, the nights he spent alone, unable to name what he lacked, the sense of absence that followed him like a shadow. All of it makes sense now. It was not emptiness he felt, but distance. Distance from her. Lily's thoughts are quieter now too. Images of the orphanage, its halls, its routines, the careful way she learned to belong without attaching too deeply float through her mind and then gently recede. For the first time, she allows herself to imagine something beyond those walls, not in detail, not as a plan, but as a possibility. That possibility does not scare her as much as it once would have. It feels warm. It feels near. The sounds of the world slowly return, the faint echo of voices down the hall, the distant hum of traffic outside, the creak of the building settling. None of it intrudes. Life goes on, indifferent and steady, while something extraordinary settles quietly into place. Michael becomes aware of how natural it feels to hold her, how his body seems to have known exactly what to do without instruction. He wonders briefly how many moments like this he missed, how many he will never get back. The thought passes through him, acknowledged, but not allowed to take root. This moment is not about mourning what was lost. It is about honoring what has been found. Lily opens her eyes slowly. She does not pull away. Instead, she looks at the space in front of her, her gaze unfocused, thoughtful. Her face is calm, softer than it was before, as if some internal tension has eased. She listens to his heartbeat again, steady and sure. "Michael," she says quietly, saying his name not as a question, but as a statement. "Yes?" he replies just as softly. She doesn't say anything else. She doesn't need to. Saying his name is enough. It is her way of anchoring him in her world, of acknowledging his place in it. Michael feels something settle inside him at the sound of it, something that feels a lot like belonging. He shifts slightly, easing into a more comfortable position on the floor, careful not to disturb her. She adjusts with him instinctively, as though they have always known how to move together. The simplicity of it nearly overwhelms him again. The future waits quietly beyond this room. There will be conversations, questions, challenges, and healing still to come. There will be moments of uncertainty, moments where the past resurfaces and demands attention. But none of that belongs to this moment. This moment belongs only to now. Michael presses a gentle kiss to the top of Lily's head, not dramatic, not possessive, just a soft, instinctive gesture of care. Lily doesn't flinch. She smiles faintly, eyes still closed, and leans into him a little more. In that embrace there is forgiveness without being asked for, acceptance without conditions, and love without performance. It is not perfect, but it is real, and real, Michael realizes, has always been enough. The room grows quieter again, as if holding its breath. The light through the window shifts once more, casting a softer glow around them. Dust motes float lazily in the air, catching the light, then disappearing. Small, ordinary things continue as they always have, bearing witness without comment. Lily's breathing deepens, slow and even. She is not asleep, but she is at peace. Michael feels it and allows himself to feel it too. He no longer feels like a man chasing something he cannot reach. He feels like a man who has arrived. Their embrace does not need witnesses. It does not need an audience or an explanation. It simply exists, complete and sufficient, sealing a story that traveled through loss, silence, and time to arrive exactly here. And in that silence, held together at last, their story finds its ending.